Good morning. Happy Mother's Day. And welcome to First Church Unitarian here in Littleton, Massachusetts. My name is Jen Jaksa, and I am a happy member of the Standing Committee. So, well, I shouldn't mention that I'm an outgoing member of the Standing Committee as well, so that would be wrong to comment on that. So I'm really happy, though. I'm really excited to be here to welcome you, and this is my first time doing so in person. So can you believe that? Louder? Okay, great. Thanks, Caroline. So first time being here in person, so I'm more often at home watching virtually with you fine people. So I have to admit I'm a little bit nervous on this, but I have my little cheat sheet here, so we're going to give it a go.
It was great.
Thanks, Gwen. You're the best. So first up on my cheat sheet is just an expression of gratitude for the amazingly generous community we have here that has once again exceeded the budgetary goals for the annual talent auction. Woo! That is so cool. Yeah, absolutely. And just in time for our annual meeting, which is, all right. Thanks, Mike. No worries. But that's just in time for our annual meeting next Sunday, right here after church services, either here in the sanctuary or at home via Zoom. The really important annual meeting, obviously, for obvious reasons, but also because we will be considering a proposal by the Green Sanctuary Task Force for which they have generously provided all of the details about this journey they've gone through to get to this point in this recommendation. So I really strongly suggest that you read through those details prior to the meeting and reach out to the task force if you have any questions. And they will certainly try to answer them before the annual meeting. So speaking of the annual meeting, there is a full set of documentation for the meeting. There are copies available, so online, but also hard copies available sitting on the table out back if you need any details of that. And with that, I am going to welcome Lori Grant to read the warrant. Thanks.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Lori Grant, your clerk. First, the voting list is now available on the website as well as posted at the church, as is the warrant. I am notifying you, the members of First Church Unitarian, that you are lawfully entitled to vote in its affairs, to meet in person in the sanctuary or on a Zoom call, and the link will be provided after church services on May 15th at approximately 11:30 following the Sunday service, and a brief social time to act on the following articles. First, to review and accept the minutes from October 24th, 2021 warranted meeting. Second, to hear and act upon the 2021-2022 annual report. Third, to elect officers of First Church Unitarian and nominating committee members. Fourth, to act upon the proposed budget from July 2022 through June 2023. Fifth, to approve expenditures of Phase 1 and Phase 2 of a new heating system. Sixth, to approve renewal of task forces. Seventh, to authorize the treasurer to borrow money on behalf of the church. And eighth, to transact any other business that may lawfully come before said meeting. Thank you.
This is the kind of God I could worship. A heavenly mother who prefers imitation to adoration, and who sees in all creation the indivisible smiles of her children. Our mother, holy wisdom, draws one breath, and even we who are miles away are warmed by the glory of her inspiration. Our mother, holy wisdom, reaches out, and even we, locked up against ourselves, are immersed in the blessing of her embrace. This earth is her body, and we, children of the earth, are her children. It really is as simple as that. Let us honor our Holy Mother by loving our bodies made in her image, by loving one another as she has loved us, by loving this earth, our beautiful and eternal home. The words of Jeffrey Symynkywicz, let us worship. I'd like to invite Fergus to come up and light our chalice this morning. And as Fergus lights our chalice, please join me in saying the words of our cup. This is our great covenant, to speak the truth in love and to help one another. Thank you. Good morning. I join with Jen and Lori in welcoming you here to First Church Unitarian in Littleton, Massachusetts. My name is Lara Hoke, and I'm so happy and lucky to be the minister serving this incredible congregation. Yes, indeed. If you are new with us this morning, whether here in person or online, we welcome you and are really glad that you found us and joined us today. If you have any questions about this church or Unitarian Universalism, feel free, if you're here in person, to talk to me or one of our other friendly people here this morning. We're a pretty friendly bunch about the church and Unitarian Universalism. If you are online, you can go to our website, fculittle.org, and you can find a lot of information there. And you can also find ways to reach out to us if you wish to be contacted by me or another member of the church. So welcome. Again, we are streaming, of course, as we always do now, so a hybrid service, or what we now call multi-platform. And we are still in green light conditions, meaning that masking is optional. However, we do strongly recommend it for singing. So, speaking of singing, it's still a thrill to me that we're able to sing together in person again after waiting more than 2 years to do so. And our opening hymn is in the blue hymnal. It's the words are from a Navajo prayer. It's hymn number 1069, Ancient Mother, and we'll sing it through 3 times. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit.
I hear your song.
Please be seated.
Is it on now? Is it on? Is it on? It's on. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm Debbie Eston, and it's a pleasure to share this beautiful story, except it's over there, with you. So, and also to introduce to you an RE rug. Thea had talked about this, and I noticed that it appeared this morning. So we have this beautiful woven rug, and if any of our children are comfortable to come and sit up here, that's fine. And if you would like to stay where you are, that's fine. And it's all fine. So, all right. So Thea selected for us this morning for our Time for All Ages, Gaia Creates Herself, from Sacred Myths, Stories of World Religions, retold by Marilyn, McFarlane. Out of the great nothing there exploded a thunderous sound, the music of all the sounds that ever were or will be. A sound so loud it pulsated for eons. And with the mighty sound came billions of chunks of fire and light and rock and dust streaking across the wide emptiness. It was probably wild, too. One of the chunks was Gaia. She spun out and away, farther and farther, rolling and spinning herself into a ball. She tilted and she turned. She danced to the music and the rhythm of the sound all around her, and in the farthest reaches of distance, fireballs glowed. The closest fireball bathed one side of her in light, while the other side rested in the cool, shadowy dark. As she spun, the dark side turned to light and the light to dark, and so she spun light and dark, light and dark. She stretched, and still spinning, she spewed the fire and rock from her body, and they became mountains, valleys, hills, ridges, plains, chasms. She breathed, and clouds formed, and rain fell, and deep oceans filled her sides, splashing against the shores. Rivers flowed through her valleys. Gaia laughed, and life came forth. Fishes swam, green shoots sprouted, creatures walked all over the contours of her body. Gaia was exalted. She loved what she had done. She couldn't stop. She laughed again, creating more and more life, just to feel it growing, flowing, swimming, crawling, breathing. Ferns, moss, pterodactyls, dandelions, daisies, hemlock trees, giraffes, cocker spaniels, carnations, snakes, tarantulas. Yeah, tarantulas. Tigers, butterflies, redwood trees, babies, humans. Gaia, the Great Mother, laughed men and women into being, and they stood and walked in wonder on the soft green grass. They saw snowy mountains, a high blue sky, apple trees. They smelled pine needles and sun-warmed blackberries, heard the hiss of the surf and the croak of the raven, maybe a frog too. That was my edit. Touched rough stone and soft skin. Gaia provided clear water and abundant food for her creatures. In dreams and visions, she came to the humans and taught them where to find plants they could eat, and roots and ripe fruits and berries. From her, they learned to walk quietly in the forest and jungle and speak to the spirits of the animals they hunted for food and fur. In her wisdom, Gaia gave sorrow, for without it, humans cannot appreciate happiness. She gave joy, anger, curiosity, fear, grief, hope, and love. She was the provider of everything, of earthquakes, hurricanes, and floods, as well as sunny days and gentle nights. She who created life and sustained it took it back into her body after death. The humans adored Gaia, the Great Mother, and revered her power. In gratitude for her gifts, they placed offerings for her in the clefts, in the rocks and earth. Sometimes they left honey and cakes, sometimes grain or fruits. Always, always, they left their grateful thanks. Gaia smiled and kept on spinning, and still she spins. Thank you. So would you like to stay here to listen to the anthem? Because we're going to go down after the anthem.
But you cannot make them just like you. Strive
Artemis was in a really fine form this morning. Thank you. It's the first time to hear you in person in more than 2 years, and you sounded wonderful. And I should have said in my words of welcome and thank Carolyn McCreary, our longtime member, for filling in for Molly so ably today on piano. Thank you so much. Okay, we have a responsive reading, and in your when you got your order of service inside, in addition to community matters, you should see the half-page insert. It starts, you'll have a chance to find it because it starts with a rather long introductory piece that I will read, and then your responses will be in the bold italics. In religious community, we share our joys and our triumphs, our sorrows and our broken places. In this circle of care, we make space for the complexity of life, the myriad experiences that bless and break our hearts. The truth of human experience dictates that on any given day, we each come to the table with hearts in different places. It is especially so on this day, invented to honor women who nurture. In this circle of care, we honor the truth that mothering is not and never will be quantified in one single descriptor. Mothering can be elusive or infuriating, fulfilling or confusing, commonplace or triumphant. It exists in the everyday experiences of each person. There is no human being that is not connected to or disconnected from a mother. And so we honor the complexity of experience writ large in flowered platitudes, but here in this space laid bare, honoring the truth in each of our hearts, there is room for all in this circle. If you have carried a child or children, whether or not they came to be born, we see you. If you have fervently wished to do so, and circumstances of fate made it impossible, we see you. If you love children we cannot see, whether because of death or estrangement, we see you. If you never wanted to be a mother, we see you. If you are happy to mother other people's children as an educator or auntie or a foster parent, we see you. If your mother hurt you physically or emotionally, we see you. If you had no mother at all, we see you. If your mother is or was your best friend, we see you. If your gender says you are not a mother, and yet you take on the role of nurturer, we see you. If you wonder whether your mothering has been enough, we see you. And if yours is a different truth altogether, we honor your unspoken story. There is room for all in this circle. May it be so today and always. This is the time in our service for our weekly offering. If you're here in person, the plate will come around to you. If you are online and you wish to make an offering, you can go to the website, fculittle.org, and look for the yellow donate button if you wish to donate online. Or you can also send in your check to our street address, which is also on the website. May this morning's offering help us practice Unitarian Universalism within and beyond our congregation as tools to empower our vision to be a joyful, welcoming community where we honor each, explore the sacred, question deeply, seek justice, and make a difference. This morning's offering will be given and received in grateful appreciation. Please join with me in the words of our community response. We are grateful for the opportunity to give and serve, and grateful for the gifts we have received. May this affirm the ministries of our church community, both within and beyond these walls. Most weeks, we share a very important time called the Candles of Caring, and this is a chance to feel once again our connections to one another and to that which is holy. If you have an important joy or concern that you would like to share with this gathered beloved community, you're invited to do so now. If you are here in the sanctuary, we ask that you raise your hand high enough that we can see it, and we'll come around with a microphone to you where you are, and ask that you hold the microphone close enough that we can hear you. And for those of you online, if you are on Zoom and you wish to share a joy or concern, look for the raise hand function in the reactions or participants area of Zoom, and we will call on you in turn. Are there any candles of caring to share this morning?
Thank you.
I'd like to ask Rich to light one last candle and let this stand for all those joys and concerns that are with us this morning, but that remain unspoken. Please join with me in the spirit of meditation or prayer. Once again, we have come together in love and trust, sharing those cares dearest to us with this gathered beloved community. Let us hold in our hearts and thoughts and prayers those joys and concerns spoken aloud this morning, as well as those that remain unspoken, as we share together in a time of sacred silence. Amen, and blessed be.
Thank you.
Today, we find ourselves thinking about two tender topics at once. The first tender topic is, of course, Mother's Day and motherhood. And the second tender topic, thanks to the news of the past week, is reproductive rights. I know that some, or even many of you, have complicated relationships and complex feelings about either or both of these topics. And please know that I am happy to speak with any one of you in the days and weeks to come if you wish. And there are other caring, compassionate, good listeners among us that you could speak with as well, if you prefer. We are here for each other, and we are ultimately in this together. Mother's Day is, of course, a tender day because of some of the things that we noted in our responsive reading this morning. It's not always a straightforward, idealized, Hallmark card kind of day. And as I tell you each year, I think that most mothers do the best they can and certainly deserve one measly day each year in which they are the focus of attention and pampering by spouses and children and so on. My only concern about the holiday personally is that I don't want us to beat up on ourselves for our feelings of inadequacy, for feelings of not living up to being the perfect mom. There is no perfection in motherhood. And no one person could be the perfect mom for everyone. On the other side of the coin, I don't want us to beat up on ourselves for not living up to being the perfect adult child. Mother's Day sometimes makes us adult children feel a little bit bad about ourselves, honestly. It makes us feel like we are or we were inadequate adult children to our mothers. For those of us who were lucky enough to have had a really good mother or motherly figure in our lives, or figures, nothing can really pay back that gift. And it's sort of humbling, and it's okay. There is no way to adequately thank a good mother or motherly figure. But you should still probably give her or them a call. Some of our mothers gave us the gift of life itself. But biological motherhood is really not at the heart of what makes mothers so special, as far as I'm concerned. What makes mothers so special is their nurturing, their unconditional motherly love. It's the caring so deeply that makes it what it is. It may or may not involve giving birth. Ultimately, motherhood is about choice. You must choose to become a mother. Some of us women who have never given birth have chosen to become mothers. Perhaps we've adopted a child or taken over the tasks of motherhood for our grandchildren or nieces, nephews, nibblings. Perhaps we've taken on stepmothering. Perhaps we've chosen to become second mothers to a child not biologically our own. But even for those of you who have given birth, you still had to choose to really become a mother. You might not have chosen to become pregnant. That might have happened without your wanting it to, or maybe even without your consent. But if you chose to stick around and nurture, then you chose to be a mother to another human being. And today, I honor that you made that choice. It is, I believe, a noble choice. It's hard to think of anything more godly than bestowing on someone your passionate motherly love. And I give heartfelt thanks today for each of you here, in person or online, who tried, even knowing that you would inevitably fall short at times. I've shared with you some of the wonderful things about my own mother in a past Mother's Day sermon, and She makes occasional cameo appearances in other sermons as well. And I appreciate so many things about my mom. And since the pandemic and the advent of online worship and social media and so on, some of you here have had the chance to get to know my mother a little bit and see some of the things that make her such a great mom, see why I'm so lucky. She was always a right-on mom in that old school sense. She was a right-on woman. She raised me in the 70s and into the 80s with a heavy dose of feminism and what we used to call women's lib. My sisters and I have all marched on Washington, D.C. with her on a few occasions, and several of those were for reproductive rights and what some call pro-choice position. Somehow, when it comes to this issue, which became what some call settled law in 1973 with the Roe versus Wade Supreme Court decision, somehow you always had that nagging feeling that it was never really as settled as all that. And here we are again, and it's what some call deja vu, as in, I can't believe we're still fighting this poo. As of last week's leaked draft decision in the Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization, we have real reason to fear that Roe might be overturned. Roe has been the law of the land almost my entire life. I can barely remember the days before it became law. Some of you here and online today have lived your entire lives under Roe's protections. But some of you are old enough to remember all too well what things were like before Roe versus Wade. This Mother's Day, I find myself especially thinking of you and my own mom, those of you who fought so hard for reproductive rights for your daughters and children who have a uterus. As Molly Jong Fast, daughter of second-wave feminist and novelist Erica Jong, writes of her mother and others in that generation, they gave us the bodily autonomy we should have already had. They gave us the opportunity to choose what happens in our own uterus. It was an essential gift. She goes on, it's worth pointing out that in 1973, when women had far fewer rights, when they couldn't even get a credit card without the permission of their husband or father, Roe was decided 7-2 with 5 Republican-appointed justices in support. The world has actually become profoundly more pro-choice than it was in 1973. Even Catholic countries like Ireland have legalized abortion. Yet here in America, the clock is spinning backwards with stunning and terrifying speed, she writes. Indeed, here in the United States, almost 70% of people want Roe to remain the law of the land. That's a huge majority in such a divided country. But nevertheless, here we are. When you consider the reality that so many Supreme Court justices have been appointed by presidents who were not, in fact, elected by the majority of US voters, I suppose you have to expect that they will sometimes make decisions that the majority of US citizens don't like. Reproductive justice is indeed a religious issue. The Unitarian Universalist Association has been working for reproductive justice basically since its inception with the merger of the Unitarians and Universalists in 1961. As one of the UU-affiliated justice organizations, Side with Love, wrote last week, our Unitarian Universalist faith affirms that all our bodies are sacred and that we are each endowed with the twin gifts of agency and conscience. Each of us should have the power to decide what does and doesn't happen to our own bodies at every moment of our lives, because consent and bodily autonomy are holy. And when disparities in resources or freedoms make it more difficult for certain groups of people to exercise autonomy over their own bodies, our faith compels us to take liberatory action. In a statement last week, the president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, the Reverend Dr. Susan Frederick Gray, wrote, "We know the most damaging impacts of overturning Roe will be felt by people of color, young people, poor and working class people, and those living in rural areas, all who even today do not have ready access to comprehensive and equitable reproductive care, including access to abortion." She notes that in 2015, the UUA adopted a statement of conscience using a framework created by women of color in the 1990s. In essence, that statement says, as she summarizes, "As a faith tradition, we are committed to reproductive justice, which espouses the human right to have children, not to have children, to parent the children one has in healthy environments, and to safeguard bodily autonomy, and to express one's sexuality freely." For my mother, and for all of you who worked so hard to make Roe a reality and worked so hard to keep it that way, rest assured that we will continue to fight. The leaked opinion, we have to remember, was a draft. It is not yet official. Roe is still the law of the land as we sit here. And perhaps the person who leaked the opinion trusted that if word got out, people would act. Now, we must, at a minimum, as Molly Jong-Fast writes, show lawmakers and justices that they are about to do something very unpopular. She goes on, "We don't know with certainty where all the justices will land. Congress can legislate, and the president can exercise executive powers. So as she writes, it's not too late, not yet." So what can we do? A few things come immediately to mind. We can donate to organizations like Planned Parenthood, the Center for Reproductive Rights, and more. We can write to President Biden to make it clear that we want and expect him to do all he can with his executive powers if it comes to that. We can write the senators who are on the fence on legislating reproductive rights. We can share our stories. Some of us have had life-saving abortions, both literally and figuratively. Some of us remember the days when backstreet abortions were common. Stories are powerful. We can attend rallies for reproductive rights, as some of us did this past week, and there will be, I'm sure, more. Our UUA president also writes, "Comprehensive reproductive care, including access to abortion, is essential to the health and well-being of women and pregnant people. We will continue to fight for permanent state and local federal legislation that codifies and enshrines the right to access abortion care. Our faith still urgently calls us to advocate on behalf of all people to be able to readily access safe, legal abortion care whenever and wherever they need it. We will not rest until that reality is true across the country," she writes. It's hard to think of a human right more basic than bodily autonomy. Women and others who have a uterus deserve this basic human right. Motherhood should be a choice. Motherhood is one of the most all-consuming callings there is, and it is best exercised by those who choose it. It should not be forced upon anyone in any form. This Mother's Day, I thank those of you who have chosen to bestow your nurturing motherly love on others. And I thank those of you who work for reproductive rights too. May we be vigilant in working toward a world where motherhood is a sacred human choice. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. Our closing hymn is in the gray hymnal. It's number 170, We Are a Gentle, Angry People. And I invite you to rise in body or spirit. For our closing words, I invite you, if you wish, to put your hands up and feel that energy between us and those online as well. Friends, we are a gentle, sometimes angry, loving people. We together fight for what is right. That is sacred. We think today of all of those who have made that challenging choice to accept the calling of motherhood. We thank you. Without you, nothing would be possible. I hope you have a very blessed Mother's Day. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.